Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Patrick Peter, Director of Resources and Circularity at Fionn by Adelphi, and I will be leading this masterclass today. And I'm really happy to have you all here talking about circular strategy, CSRD compliance, and decarbonization made simple. And I know this is a bold claim, made simple in such a complex topic and in such a broad topic. And of course, this is a bit clickbaity, but my goal for the day is really to show you that it can be done to integrate a circular strategy without onboarding 500 people from a big four consulting company. If you have the right methodology, and if you do have experts that can guide you through that process, it can be done within a couple of months' time, and you know where you'll be heading towards integrating circularity within your business strategy. With that being said, let's jump right in. Just 2 slides about ourselves, about Fionn by Adelphi, who we are. Well, Fionn is the brand from Adelphi for sustainable transformation services for corporate clients. And we have been a relatively new offering by Adelphi. Adelphi itself is much older. It has been founded in 2001 already. And today we are Europe's leading and largest think and do tank for climate, environment, and development, having over 350 experts working within our organization, and we have been working on behalf of more than 280 organizations and have implemented more than 1,500 projects in the scope of environment development, climate circularity, and all sorts of other sustainability matters. We do also have an extensive network of partner organizations. So whatever the sustainability task is, we much likely can solve it. Specifically, our circularity office or our circularity business line is offering some core services that are all based on our platform, the Circularity Lab. And within the Circularity Lab, we're able to really holistically guide companies on their circular journey, wherever they are in their journey, whether they are more of a forerunner and have implemented some measures already, or they're at the very beginning, which most companies, I believe, still are. Circularity within companies is still a nascent field. So we can start at the very beginning and guide you through the process and stay with you all the time. We do have more than 75 experts with deep knowledge in the context of circular economy. And this really spans all sorts of matters that fall under this very broad field of circularity. So supply chains, water, biodiversity, resources, all these things are covered by our expert team. And we have published more than 320 high-impact publications in the context of CA, SE, really enabling us to create impact in a broad range of sectors. All of these below and more we have been working with to help these companies and also full sectors become more circular. Today's agenda, 5 points. Really, the goal for today is to give you the basic understanding to get you started, to reach out to experts, to reach out to internal experts within your firms and companies and organizations, and maybe also take this as the starting point, as the launch pad to dive deeper into the different aspects of circularity. So we'll start and have a look at why is it actually so hard to implement the circular economy or circular principles within organizations, or even looking beyond organizations to implementing it and enforcing it within supply chains. It's hard, that's no secret, and we'll have a short look at why it is so hard and what can be done to mitigate these hardships. Secondly, we will introduce a potential circularity assessment and management methodology that you could also use, that is based on well-known frameworks and methodologies on the market, which we have also been an implementation partner with. So we have been shaping these methodologies and have been able to use it in the field, and then going back and based on these learnings, we were able to to integrate those back into the methodology development. Thirdly, how it's done in the real world, right? Using that assessment and management methodology to create impact. And I've brought one of our success stories for today, which is Coroso. Coroso is one of the largest flexible packaging manufacturers in Europe, and driven by regulation and new customer demand, they do have and had the challenge to become more circular, and we've been able to help them with that. Fourthly, how can you start? How can you start using methodologies like CTI and Circulytics as your decision-making tools? And lastly, a lot of questions will probably come up here, and we will be able to discuss this shortly in this webinar. But certainly, please always feel free to reach out to me or some of our colleagues so that we can exchange knowledge, challenges, experiences, and so on. Without further ado, let's start. Why it's so hard to actually implement the circular economy? Why is it so difficult? And let's have some looks at some crucial data points here. Firstly, I think this is quite clear. Even though Ellen MacArthur Foundation, they have been working so hard to really make the world more circular, and we are in constant exchange with people there because it's a great platform. And I'm always asking them, aren't you frustrated that the world does not become more circular, even though you're working since more than 2 decades to make it more circular? The world became much less circular over the last 20 years. And that's a problem, because if we look at our available carbon budget, it is no secret that most of it, or the largest single portion of it, is consumed by materials. And materials are really the key lever and driver for decarbonization. If we look on the right-hand side of these charts, we see that we have a tremendous overshoot if we keep using, consuming, and not recycling, reusing materials as we should. So there's a large overshoot, and we really have to become. Können Sie sich bitte muten? And we really have to become more circular to shave off this overshoot. And regulation now made it everyone's business. So there are very few sectors which are not directly and strongly affected by ESRS E5. And it's not just about reporting. ESRS E5 and all the other acts that have been put in place on the left-hand side, we see some of the measures that have been put in place. They're really forcing whole sectors and their ecosystems and their suppliers to act, to lay out a very thorough strategy on how they become more circular. So it is really a complex new playing field in which we are all operating here. And it is really specific to these different segments here. In mobility, you have some shared challenges with plastics, for example. However, in the details, you do have different types of targets that you would have to fulfill to be compliant. And we will have a look at this later, looking at our case study. So on ESRS E5, I'm quite sure you have all downloaded the ominous Excel file and have had a look at it, seeing that there are around about 84 aggregated data points. And these data points are really just the tip of the iceberg, because what they entail is to lay out a clear circularity strategy for your organization. Next to the general disclosure requirements that you would have to fulfill, you would really have to dive deep here, looking into what are the implications, risks, and opportunities emerging from circularity based on how it affects maybe resource scarcity, my suppliers, and therewith my company and my shareholders, or how do my actions gearing towards unresponsible resource consumption, towards increasing risk for others in my ecosystem. And you have really put the numbers behind that with circular metrics, and you have to set yourself targets. That's hard, but it's also a great thing. And many companies have already embarked on that journey. So we've found that 77% of European companies, they already touch upon the topic of circular economy within their sustainability reports. And that's a bit of a problematic issue here. Only 22% of them include one or more of the quantitative indicators required by CSRD. So how can I put it nicely here? That means 77%, usually a lot of fluff, but putting hard numbers behind it to be then later accountable for living up to your claims. That's a whole different story, right? And we see that a lot of companies really struggle to implement quantitative indicators which are required by CSRD, but also would help them tremendously to become more profitable in their business. So what are some other barriers behind putting right numbers here? This is pretty much the overview of all the company internal and external barriers which are currently are hindering, or at least are challenging for company leaders to overcome. I'm not going into depth here within all of these fields, because the focus of this webinar today is somewhat a bit of lack of knowledge, right? And it's not a bad thing, seeing that, okay, we do really have to learn something here so that we can implement circularity is really the first step. And the focus of today's webinar is trying to create a better understanding on how it can be done. Regulation is, of course, the key driver for probably everything we do within circularity, right? Companies are usually not altruistic. Many of them are implementing sustainability measures because the law says so. And this then already is the first step into your circular journey. Mastering regulatory compliance as a first step. But what we have learned from this is, once we have started with our customers in really mapping out the regulatory targets, they themselves come up with more ambitious targets. And from that, they then move on to step 2 and step 3 within their value creation journey. But let's start with the complying part here. You have to become compliant early and soon. You have to start with this. And in the first step, you should get a roadmap to get you started and clear and actionable targets so that you can become compliant. And you can do that by creating excitement, by sharing best practices within your organization, talking to your managers. Usually, you have a lot of experts and stakeholders that have probably never heard about the circular economy, but they bring valuable knowledge to the table. And if you would just connect them internally and you become the champion for that journey, you have a lot of great resources and capabilities at hand already. First step is also to select a good circularity framework. So the framework will guide you through the implementation process of circular measures. And I will show you today some of the frameworks that we are using quite frequently. Secondly, aspiring, going beyond compliance. As I said, from everything that you measure, you can manage things, right? You can build business cases, you can benchmark yourselves against your competitors, you become more efficient in your operations, really start building quick win projects and gather more attention within your organization to attract more resources and also become even more ambitious in the next steps. And thirdly, empowering. So really seeing and seizing all the opportunities that circular economy can have on your business, developing new partnerships in your supply chains, new business models, really growing green, and also have a great reputation with your customers for being more circular. That's an old quote, but it never runs old, really. You can't manage what you can't measure, by Peter Drucker, and he's absolutely right. And we will see how measuring circularity will enable managing circularity as a next step. So let's have a look at circularity assessment and management using CTI and Circulytics, really explaining how the interplay of tools can help companies evaluate and manage their circularity journey. So it is very important to have an integrated circularity readiness assessment in place. What does that mean? Well, circularity is based on two aspects, broadly spoken. Firstly, what is your material flow? Which materials flow into your company boundaries? How do you use them for production? And which of these materials flow out of your company again in which ways? Generally speaking, how much of this material flow is circular? So how much of this is renewable, recoverable, or recyclable? But not just the material itself, also the energy that you're using, the water that is used, the landfill that you create. All of these things are assessed using robust indicators. And from that, with CTI, you're able to create an ESRS-ready framework that can scale from product level up to the value chain level. So you can start with looking at one of your major products, then scale it up to your factory, and then maybe scaling it up to the whole company level. The great thing about this is also it allows for a multidimensional and monetary perspective. So we can actually put a euro or dollar number behind your circular and non-circular material flow, really helping to map out the business cases behind becoming more circular. But secondly, once you have identified hotspots in which you would have to act, you also have to assess your ability to execute these initiatives. And this is where we are using the enablement part from Circulytics, for example, really assessing the company capabilities in a set of core parameters, such as, do you have a circular strategy? How innovative are you? Do you have the right human power and knowledge base to do that? How engaged are you with your stakeholders and shareholders, and so on and so forth. And from this, you get a very good picture and robust framework to start embarking on your journey. Let's dive a bit deeper into the tools and methodologies. CTI, let's start with it first. In a nutshell, what is CTI? CTI have been developed for companies, by companies, with the support of researchers, academics, but also NGOs. And it has been published by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And it is very much aligned with the metrics that you would have to report within ESRS E5. And we're an official implementation partner, which means that we're not just using the methodology, but we're co-developing the methodology. So always having some foresight on how indicators will develop, exchanging best practices with the other implementation partners, which really streamlines the whole process. It is sector agnostic, so no matter in which sector you're working, CTI will work for your organization. And the goal of it is helping the companies, but also experts, to assess the circular performance, to answer questions like, how circular is my company or my product, my factory, my entire supply chain even? How can we set targets for improvement? And how do we monitor these improvements resulting from our circular activities? So this pretty much will be your mission control for your ongoing reporting of circularity measures. As I said, CTI assesses the resource inflows and outflows of your boundary that you have set, of your system boundary that you have set. And the operating principle of it is that you have a look at the assessment of material flows within your company boundaries. And this can, as I said, really be implemented within different levels. You can start small. You can exclude some factors in the beginning to just get you started, and then add more and more detail to it while you're getting more experienced with using and also communicating the results of the methodology. The key intervention points, as mapped out in this graphic here, you can see the circular inflow on the left-hand side. So how circular are my resources that I'm using? You see also the outflow of it. So how are my products actually designed to ensure technical recoverability of components and materials? And this is quite a tricky part, really, because you would have to know, first of all the materials that you're using. You would have to have the exact bill of materials of those, and you would have to have a good overview about the recyclability, for example, of the let's say alloys that you're using. If you're an automotive OEM, do you know how recyclable these alloys are? And you do have a set of range of indicators that really are tailored to different business types, but also to the maturity under which you are able to report currently. So it's 4 sets of indicators: closing the loop, optimizing the loop, valuing the loop, and what is the impact of the loop. The close the loop is really, I would say, with this material circularity indicator, the core KPI that you will be creating here for your company as a North Star, but also for your stakeholders. So this really calculates the company's effectiveness in closing the loop on material flows. And on the others, we will dive into them maybe a bit later, as otherwise we would be running out of time today. The great thing about here is really that you can also put an impact number behind the loop. So if you would become more circular, how would that impact your, I would say, major KPI that you're reporting against, the GHG impact, or in the future also nature impact? Let's have a look at the material circularity. It is the key indicator to assess your organization's performance in being able to close the loop. So from top to bottom, you can see how the sub indicators are measured and calculated, and this is so important to have a look at this, because usually ESRS just says, okay, you have to report this right up here. But this is just usually an aggregated KPI. And to come to that KPI, you would have to be able to calculate subsequent KPIs from this. And CTI really offers a strong and robust bench framework to do just that. You can also transfer, so to say, your findings from circularity and provide a high-level information of GHG savings that can be achieved by applying circular strategies. And you can then thereby use scenario analysis. What would happen if I would introduce more secondary or renewable materials into my inflow? How would that change my overall circularity metric? And how would that also impact my GHG footprint? What is the value of all of this for an organization? You do better understand the lever of circularity on overall GHG emission savings. You can evaluate the trade-offs against each other, because sometimes it's not helpful to look into more recyclables or recycled content in the inflow, as, for example, Lego just found out within a case study, because this would create unintended negative side effects on their overall impact for now. And you can do that only if you have the right measures in place. And it also helps you to prioritize your circular initiatives, what to do first and what to do afterwards, but more on that in our case study later. The framework itself operates under a 7-step process. You start scoping, determining what are the boundaries under which you feel comfortable and confident that you can report and get data. Then you select the correct indicators for you. Again, only those in the beginning that you have data for and that you can actually integrate. Then you start collecting the data, making sense of them, calculating, making sense of it, analyzing the results. And then from that, you can prioritize your actions and start applying and monitoring your actions. Secondly, we have the Circulytics. As I said, the Circulytics enablement part really helps companies informing let's jump on that slide here, informing what are the enablers and what is the current capability base for a company-wide circular economy transition or transformation. So pretty much helping seeing what are the critical aspects, what are the gaps in my organization. So they really cover a wide range of relevant areas of your capability base. And we will have a deeper look into this later. Having a look at ESRS compliance through CTI and Circulytics, we can really see that with these combined methodologies, you can pretty much map and match the required disclosure requirements needed to be compliant. Let's have a look at a real-world circularity case study, Coroso, and how we help them to improve their circular performance, and also to actually find out that they're much more ambitious than they thought they were in the beginning of it. Some quick facts about Coroso. They're the largest flexible packaging manufacturer, also for food and non-food items. They have the largest manufacturing facilities in Europe and the Middle East, and they're quite a large company with a lot of facilities to be covered, and a complex material inflow and outflow. So our course of action was broadly spoken, a five-step process. Firstly, we have started with a policy heat map. What does that mean? We have reviewed the relevant policies and regulations in the context of the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, helping them to understand what is the must targets that they would have to hit in order to be still able to serve their customers on the European market. We have deduced must targets for them. And then we have, secondly, run our circularity scan, meaning combination of CTI and Circulytics enablers, assessing their current performance, identifying hotspots on where they would have to get better, and also then in third, developing a roadmap with different scenarios, target settings, and really identifying transition pathways, so that they can then achieve their targets. Fourthly, we have implemented some additional measures that were helping them to putting their roadmap into action, and then also supporting them in monitoring their ongoing process. So let's start with the first step, the policy heat map. We have been mapping the whole regulatory framework that is material for the company. So we have been looking at emerging policies. So for example, the new eco-design requirements, the digital product passport, the extended producer responsibility, ESRS, and so on and so forth. And from that, we have been able to just filter, so to say, their policies, targets, and key topics relevant and material for their business. And from that, we have then been able to map and prioritize regulatory targets that they would have to meet. So based on the materiality for the industry, materiality, if you're doing all other sorts of CSRD reporting projects, and you can also use that principle here for circularity. And then again, mapping short, medium, and long-term impact, and as such, prioritizing the targets that they would have to meet. Then running the circularity scan. These are just exemplary numbers here, illustrative. We cannot disclose the actual inflow and outflow for now. Of course, under CSRD in place, everyone needs to disclose these numbers, which will create some sort of pressure also on the sectors to really optimize against these metrics, which will be beneficial for sustainability. But for now, we cannot disclose these real numbers. But this is how it is visualized, then aggregating up the numbers and going a bit deeper into this process on the next slides on how this inflow and outflow is then modeled. You can see on the bottom part here also which business processes here are the key drivers or the champions that you would have to involve to actually optimize these different flows of material. And that really helps you also to get in touch with the right people and making them part of that of this project. Let's go a bit deeper into the inflow part. So we get usually company data on that on a mass basis. So how much of the inflow materials are virgin and how renewable are they? And to come to that conclusion, you could either use ready-made databases if they do report against this, but usually it is also better to really consult with experts on the likelihood of recyclability or renewability of the input and the output of your materials. Some materials, they're just not available as renewables. That was also the case in that case, and you would have just to live with it for now and really focus on the hotspots on where you can have an impact. The recovery potential is then really the breakdown based on an assessment. So outflows are pretty much components or full products of yours, and based on the materials that are within it, but also based on the overall construction of the product, you can deduce a recovery potential. So for example, there are some components in an electric vehicle that up till now, they have a high recovery opportunity because they contain a lot of regulated materials such as plastics, for example. But their recovery potential is basically zero because in the way they are constructed, glued instead of screwed, and so on and so forth, it is simply not that easy to recover these materials. So this would then be a hotspot for your product development department to look into this and make this potential for recovery accessible. On the outflow side, you can see the actual recovery. And this is really a blind spot for most companies as of now. Many don't really keep track on where their actual recovery goes. So, and recyclability also goes. So as of today, a lot of assumptions are being made based on best practices, based on research data. But this would usually then ignite the companies to really follow up on their end of life supply chains and keep better track of their material flows after they have left their company boundaries. Coming to the Circulytics capability assessment, this is a qualitative survey for assessing their circularity enablers. And you can also add questions to this if you like. So if you believe that, for example, innovation is a very important part, you can build out these survey questions to get a better understanding, and then also weight the themes differently to account for that. So basically, it's 5 pillars: strategy and planning, external engagement, innovation, people and skills, and your operations. And again, this is just an exemplary slide here, not disclosing actual numbers here of the customer. From that, you get a pretty good visual statement that then can also be used within connecting with decision makers in the organization, really mapping out, okay, what are the implications from this survey? Where can we improve? Where do we have to improve? And where are really our strengths that would act as a catalyst, so to say, to really make to give more punch to our circularity initiatives that we will then have to start. From that, we have developed a fact-based circular roadmap. So the circularity assessment really have helped us to inform the road mapping and the strategy making process by implementing or by being able to answer 5 key questions, right? First, what are realistic but also ambitious targets that we should set in order to become more circular, at least to become compliant. Secondly, what actions need to be taken to become more circular in the packaging sector? One of the strongest levers, of course, is the material inflow, but also in R&D, being able to make the product, to build the product in such a way that there is higher potential for reusability and recoverability, or at least recyclability. Thirdly, what are the costs and benefits? And this is really crucial here. And that goes usually beyond reporting. So CSRD reporting is usually just about reporting inflow and outflow metrics. But the transformation is then strongly affected by the costs and the benefits of your initiatives, and you can then start looking into this on how you can start shifting in a sequential way your business model. So how can we shift our business to become more circular by choosing the actions that, first of all, we have the ability to execute. Secondly, those that have the strongest impact on our circularity. And thirdly, that are also matching our shareholder expectations. And once you have really combined these three lenses, it becomes also much easier to execute these shifts, and also look at the financial resources, acquire these financial resources needed to make that shift, rather from cash flow or also external funding by Green Deal instruments. And lastly, it allows for management. So having all of this in place, you can set a very clear set of core KPIs and targets that are interconnected to the overall KPI system of the company. And from that, a circularity vision is derived. We had at least 10 of these scenarios mapped out, 2 of which we then had a deeper look, and we have then created a long-term roadmap based on 2 scenarios. So first scenario was compliance plus by 2030, meaning that we would help to increase the inflow of recycled content and also increase the outflow potential of actual recovery quite significantly. From that, we have then been able to set 4 pathways on where to actually invest. And these 4 were coordination and governance, product design and development, procurement, production and operations management, and then also investing in the sustainability data management infrastructure. And we have found in the overall process that product design and development and also procurement and operations are such strong key levers, enablers for the company, that those are the key areas of action. Putting these pathways into action, some additional services and solutions for circularity are usually advised. So on the left-hand side, you see the policy radar, for example. This is one of the modules that we have used, but also material-led design. So really sitting down with experts on circular design principles and circular or green sustainable materials, incorporating complex parameters on really deciding how can you change product design, how can you procure for better materials. And on the right-hand side, as an example, this then can be also fueled by a materials insights database. We do have a materials insights database, for example, that would enable you to just upload your BOM, so your bill of materials of your product, and immediately see how you could optimize your footprint and your circularity based on that BOM by just switching to other suppliers or switching material entirely without really sacrificing the performance of your product. Lastly, the monitoring part, super important. As I said, by combining CTI and Circulytics, and then using these metrics to map out a comprehensive strategy, circularity strategy, you can just use this and operate this under an OKR framework, so objectives and key results, and also action items there. So in that project, we have initially identified a savings potential of 30,000 tons of CO2 annually. And this is enabled by a 35% material circularity, which would set Corozo apart from its competitors as well. And this is achieved by the 4 pathways under which a lot of individual action items are prioritized, budgeted, and also have a product owner or responsible person to carry these out within the company. And these goals are then, if we would have a look higher up the pyramid, so the top hat, so to say, that is missing, would then be interconnected with their business goals of the overall company. So how can you start measuring and managing circularity today and really move through that journey like Corozo, for example? So this is what a typical journey for you would look like. And you might be surprised by the speed of it, right? So we can start this month, and in 2 months' time, we will be ready and have your circularity scan available, really assessing your current circularity performance and also matching your current circularity performance against the policy targets that you would have to meet, but also evoking your ambition and finding out on how you can actually benefit from becoming more circular. In 3 months' time, 3 to 6 months' time, we can create your roadmap, define the key initiatives that would help to reach your targets, do a cost-benefit analysis of it, and then really start implementing. And if needed, stay the course, join the journey, and then looking into services and solutions that you could use to really integrate those or to implement those initiatives and actions. And lastly, ongoing monitoring. So keep reporting against your metrics, but also guiding you on the overall way in implementing your circular initiatives, assessing those, and also communicating the results towards your shareholders, your stakeholders, both internally and externally.